Hello to everybody from camperbuyer.com. My name is Michael and today I'm going to share with you a fantastic recipe from the Dolomites in Italy. It's going to be wild rustic tagliatelle with some wild mushrooms and some fire grilled steak. So stay tuned because this dish is going to be fabulous. So this dish is inspired by a moment we woke up in the Dolomites. We woke up to a sunrise that was casting over the jagged edges of the Dolomites. And we just thought, let's stay one more day. But we didn't have much food left in our van. So I raided the cupboards and I had a ready steady cook meal with some dried mushrooms, some flour, some eggs, some parmesan, 'cause I always keep that in the van. And we always have little steaks that are frozen in the freezer and I always individually pack them so I can get one out at a time if I want to. Now, I know I've developed a bit of a reputation for having a drink of wine every time I cook, but today I might make an exception. I am going to use a bottle of wine, but I'll show you in a moment why, so stay tuned. First thing we need to do is make our pasta. Now there are lots of different recipes you can do to make pasta. I'm just going to go with a simple, easy one that you need to remember, which is 100 grams for every egg that you want to use. And I use an egg for every person I'm cooking for because people like pasta. So first of all, we get 200 grams of flour. We place it onto our worktop surface. We use the bottom of the bowl to make a nice well. Next, we get a couple of eggs and we crack those eggs into the center of the well. So what we want to do is just whisk the eggs a little bit from the inside and slowly start letting the flour come in. Now if you rush this or take it too fast, you'll end up with runny egg all over your worktop. Now you need to be kneading this for about 6 to 8 minutes, but aim for 10. I like to put on, like I said, a bit of Pavarotti, a couple of tracks of Pavarotti whilst I'm rolling dough. It just seems to make it taste nicer. Okay, I'm now happy with the dough. I've kneaded that for about 8 to 10 minutes. It's nice, it's smooth, it's silky, and it's got some spring and some bounce in it. So now I need to get this, pop it in a bowl and cling film it and leave it for about half an hour. There we go. When it's time to lean, it's time to clean. It's been about 45 minutes since we kneaded the pasta dough. I've had my fire lit and it's now rearing a good blaze. So I think what we'll do is we'll get started just on the base mix for the pasta. So we're going to get our pan. We're going to place it over the flames or over a single gas stove if that's what you're cooking on. We're going to add some water to it. It's cold water, by the way. And then we're going to add all of our dry mushrooms. And what that will do is just create this amazing stock for the pasta to cook in. And you'll see what I'm going to do with it later. We just pop our wild mushrooms in there as well. Then let's get some Worcestershire sauce. Pop it in there. Give it some umami. We'll get some smoked garlic. Add our garlic into there. Next up we need some seasoning, so we'll go with some salt, some pepper. And that, my friends, is the tastiest pasta water you're ever going to cook with. We're using porcini mushrooms, so the porcini mushrooms, they grow in that mountainous habitat. I tend to find them near the pine trees and stuff like that, but I'm sure people have got their own tips on how you find porcini mushrooms. So that's our beautiful stock for the pasta to cook in. The pasta is going to add the starch to the stock, which will add some creaminess. That, along with the Parmesan cheese, will just make it a nice creamy, silky sauce that we're going to add for the pasta. I would like to take this moment to congratulate myself on getting this far in the cooking and not opening this bottle of wine to neck off of it before I start cooking. I think that deserves a round of applause, don't you? I think that deserves something. So let's get the pasta. Now to do this, I recommend you do it in small sections because you will be surprised how far this pasta goes. So I'm going to cut it into quarters, which is 4 for those of you who didn't listen in maths. And we're just going to kind of just roll each one out as thin as we can get into a bit of a sausage, and then we can roll it with the with the bottle of wine. Right, let's get all the knives and everything out of the way and steak. Let's add a little bit of flour to the board. And there we go. Now ideally you want to roll this about 1 millimetre thick, but given we're on a very rickety table and we're using a bottle of wine, I'm going to give myself a bit of a pass to make it a bit more rustic. And I'd encourage you to do the same, because life's too short for being too precise about these sort of matters. And because we're not playing Pavarotti, it's not going to taste as nice. So if you're doing this at home, make sure you've got the Pavarotti on. That's our first piece. I'm going to roll it up very, very loosely. It's been dusted with flour. I'm going to get my knife and then I'm just going to cut it into strips. Now I like to make them quite thick and not necessarily perfect, because if they're perfect, people don't think you've made it yourself. Whereas if they're a little bit rough, like so, they'll know it's homemade. We're not serving in a restaurant today, we're serving outdoors. Right, time for the next quarter. It took a bit longer with a bottle of wine, so I do think I deserve a glass after all this is finished. We're going to pop some of the wine now into that stock. I would have done it before, but I didn't want to risk leaking it all over the pasta. The pasta water's now got a nice rolling boil, so I'm going to drop the pasta in and just give it a quick stir. Make sure all the pasta is submerged, like so. So that should only take about 2 or 3 minutes to cook through the pasta, and then I'm going to move it over, drop some butter into it, put some Parmesan shavings and pop my steak on, and then just let everything do its thing. It's time to go on with the steak. Now for the steak, I would recommend bavette, sirloin, ribeye, whatever you've got in your fridge. This is actually a little piece of flat iron, which I think is a really good cut as well, and it's quite cheap. So we'll pop that on. We're now going to go in, I would say, with a generous amount of butter into that pasta. And now, time to put some Parmesan in. Now the Parmesan's going to react with the starchy water and make up a bit of a creamy sauce. For those of you who like a traditional carbonara, it's a similar sort of thing. We're letting the starch from the water mix with the Parmesan cheese, and that gives it its lovely creamy texture. You don't need the cream. Now if you have got cream in the fridge, add some in, but don't worry if you haven't. This was all about that time I woke up one morning and decided I wanted to stay camping where I was. So we're just going to go on with lots and lots and lots and lots of Parmesan cheese. Just look how much cheese is on the top of there. Beautiful. Those steaks have had about 90 seconds either side. So our steak is ready. We've got some grated Parmesan cheese ready to go. We've got some parsley and thyme ready to sprinkle over the top, and our pasta is just bubbling away in the pan. Let's plate this up. Oh yes. This is exactly how I remember it. We were kind of making it up as we went along, and then we realised this was a dish we were going to put on again. Let's get our pasta. Roll it in there. Let's pop some of these mushrooms on top. Just add a little bit of that sauce. Drizzle it over the top. That's it, just like that. Now it's time to slice some steak. And then we're just going to dress the steak over the top, like so. And this. Let's just put a little bit of Parmesan over it. Let's go with some herbs. And that for me is just, that is a dish that reminds me of the Dolomites. That is waking up in the morning, deciding you don't want to move on. You want to take in the view, roll some pasta, cook some beef, make that magical sauce with the dried porcini mushrooms, use the starch from the pasta water, just grate in that Parmigiano cheese and just dig in. Look at that, fantastic. Bellissimo.